This is Newsroom on SABC News. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Ibn Jansen. The show is broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are then repeated at 2 in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We're also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, with the entire show available on our YouTube channel all the time, which means you can watch it anywhere in the world at any time. Today, well, we look at the scourge of corruption in South African schools. The Democratic Alliance, the official opposition here in South Africa, planned a march to the headquarters of the ruling party, the African National Congress, in Johannesburg today. And we look at the latest craze sweeping the online world, that is called neck nomination. That will be very interesting. But first, let's take a look at the news headlines. Is waiting for the outcome of its court application for a protective order against the DA's march in Johannesburg today. The ruling party made the application in the South Gauteng High Court yesterday. DA leader Helen Zille will lead party members in a revised march to Beyers Nadir Square to demand real jobs, it says. The party originally planned to march to the ANC's headquarters, Luthuli House, but this plan was stopped by the Metro Police in the city. The march is expected to severely affect traffic in the CBD. 77 people have died when a military transport plane crashed in a mountainous area in eastern Algeria. It was carrying members of the armed forces and their relatives. It's reported one person survived. Officials say poor weather conditions and strong winds may have played a role in the crash. Algeria has announced a 3-day period of national mourning. And the South African cricket team want to show the cricket world exactly why the Proteas are the #1 team in Test cricket. The Proteas take on Australia in the first Test in Centurion today. After all the hype and a massive build-up, South African captain Graham Smith says his team can't wait to get onto the field and let their skills do the talking. Now, advocacy group Section 27 says it's encouraging that there's an increase in the number of corruption cases being reported at schools in South Africa. The report has found that schools are leading in corruption, followed by traffic and licensing and the health and water sectors. Since January 2012, the civil society organisation has received over 300 reports of corruption in schools via its website, SMS hotline and the telephone line. Corruption Watch has made schools monitoring a focus in 2013. Now, from Corruption Watch, we are joined by the Deputy Director, Bongi Mlangeni. Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me, Eben.
Just want to tell you, we were expecting the Department of Education to join us, but it seems that they are late and they'll be missing out on the interview. So it's me and you today. That's
fine.
Firstly, I don't think people have an idea of what corruption in schools really entails. Can you tell us what are the main crisis points in schools and then also how the people out there can detect it and report it and deal with it?
Eben, when we started as Corruption Watch, we also had no idea that corruption was in fact taking place at schools, and we had no idea of how it manifests itself. It was interesting because in our first year, that is in 2012, after we were launched in January, we received about 68 reports. You may say this is a small number from an entire country, but to us, the 68 reports were detailing the type of corruption that was a big concern. And then we decided that we're going to launch a campaign. We have found when we looked at our data, because now we have 661 cases from all over the country, we found that the types of corruptions that are happening at school involve financial mismanagement, where principals mainly embezzle school funds. We find that there is a lot of theft, particularly in the nutrition program, where funds that have been allocated to feed children are being pocketed either by teachers or school principals. We also find that there is a lot of corruption. 16% of our cases of the 661 tell us that there's a lot of corruption in procurement. That is tender type of corruption, and that is a great concern to us.
I would think it's a concern to the entire country. What sort of effect in your studies have you found does it have on schooling and then the functioning of schools, especially in the poorer communities?
It has a great negative effect. I just want you to imagine a school that has been allocated millions of funds by the Department of Education, and the principal is supposed to buy furniture, is supposed to equip the school, but that school is presently not getting all the equipment it deserves and equipment it can access because the funds have already been allocated. Imagine how those children are being denied the rights to education just by making sure that those who have the power are taking the money away from them and denying them the right that they have, the right that is in our Constitution.
We see a lot of, in today's world, parents are a lot closer involved with the education process in South Africa. What has been the response from parents to this, and what kind of inputs do parents have in this, or don't they at the moment?
Well, we have also noted that you are very right, that parents aren't as involved as they can be, which is why as Corruption Watch we have launched a campaign where we are now doing public education to educate parents about their rights in schools and asking them, requesting them to become part of the school life. Because if they are not involved, then they will never know how budgets are allocated, how budgets are finally used by the school principals and the school governing bodies who are in charge of the school's budget.
In South Africa, we have certain provinces that are problem areas within the education system. Can you give us an idea as to what are the provinces, or where are the areas or the cities that are the worst affected?
Well, we did two studies. I mean, one is not a study, it's just information based on our data. Our data is showing us that problem areas are mainly Gauteng, Free State, and KZN and Mpumalanga. And we did another study via Mixit where we polled about 3,200 and so people. And again there, it turned out that in Mpumalanga and in the Free State, you still get serious problems, particularly in terms of procurement of services at school levels. That's where most of the problems are happening. So those are the main regions where we are hearing a lot of complaints from parents. I just need to clarify one thing, that by getting reports from those provinces, it does not necessarily mean they are the most corrupt.
Yeah.
It means that the people in those provinces are willing to speak out. They are tired of what they're seeing. So the provinces where we are not getting lots of reports, for instance, like Limpopo, it's because it's possible that it is because the parents there are not as activated as the parents in the provinces that I have mentioned earlier.
Well, we've got some good news, Bongi, at least. The Department of Basic Education have arrived, and Elijah Mhlanga is just getting mic'd up and finished up. So he'll give us a real insight as to what they're doing and how they're doing. But I wanted to ask you about the report submitted to the Department of Education and what's been the response so far.
Well, what we have done in Gauteng in particular, when we started this campaign earlier this year, we approached the Gauteng department. They were very responsive. They were willing to engage with us, and they even introduced us to other stakeholders. They were also willing to look at the cases that we bring to them. We find that the response generally when we approach departments in provinces, they tend to be quite responsive. You get a sense that they need the support of the public to actually become part of this fight against corruption. And Corruption Watch is doing exactly that. And we are willing to continue working with the departments so that we can together fight corruption and end it in schools.
Well, Elijah Mhlanga has joined us now in studio here. Good morning, and thank you for joining us. Traffic a little bit difficult this morning?
Yes, yeah. Remember, there's a demonstration outside in the city.
Yeah, there's a big demonstration. We'll be dealing with it a little bit later. But we're talking about corruption in schools because it's such a difficult thing, I would think, to police, and it's such a difficult thing to keep your finger on. What are you guys doing at the department to firstly look at it, deal with the reports that are coming in from people like Corruption Watch, and how do you then go on to police it and make sure that you know, we get the best out of the funds going to schooling in this country.
Thanks very much for the opportunity. I think it's very important for us to indicate that the system that we're dealing with is a massive one. We have about 24,700 schools in the country, over 400,000 teachers and 12 million learners. So you can understand the magnitude of the work itself. But secondly, we appreciate the work that's being done by organizations like Corruption Watch and many others that go to schools and investigate and report on incidents of corruption, because there is no way, I mean, the department itself, we do not have the capacity to be able to monitor each and everything that's happening in all the schools. So we appreciate the work that's being done, and in fact, it's a confirmation of our call that education is a societal issue, which means everyone must play their part. We are happy when we receive reports, because then we are in a position to act based on those reports. Where there's evidence, action is taken.
When we talk about the learners and their performance in school, it's always a big focus, and we call on parents to get involved into the schooling of their children and to interact with the schools. In this case, what kind of role are you calling on the parents to play when they suspect there's this kind of thing? And also, how can they then get into contact, or how can they blow the whistle in this case?
I think what we need to say is that the first line of accountability in a school is the school governing body, because that's where the school management on a day-to-day basis is based. And secondly, there's a second office where you can report, but most importantly, there's a district office. If you're not happy with what is happening at school level, you can report to an authority above that, which is the second or the district. But you're also free to go to the province. Ultimately, you can even go to national. I mean, we have a call center where we anonymously can receive reports of incidents of corruption or suspected corruption. So there are various avenues that are available to those that feel aggrieved about activities that are happening at school.
Tell us about the kind of action that's been taken against culprits. For instance, if school principals are embezzling money, what kind of action has the department taken in recent times?
Well, there are different things. There are situations where others have received suspended sentences where you're being punished, but you get a warning. But others have been demoted, others have been fired. I mean, there are various situations like that that we have received from districts where action has been taken against them. In fact, even in the recent school visits now in January, there was a situation where in one school the matric pass rate was very good, but there were issues of school management and corruption. So as much as the results were good, the principal was removed.
Well, that's good to hear, because quite often that kind of thing would override it, one would think. So that's fantastic work done on your part. I wanted to ask you a final question to give us some, give us your thoughts on that, and also tell us about the worst cases that you've come across.
Well, we have a case that we presented to the Department of Education in Gauteng, a school in Tubelihle, where Corruption Watch investigated a case of fraud there, and we actually found evidence of fraud. And the principal, we know that she was put on suspension. We have reported this case to the police, but we're still waiting to hear from the department what is the final step, because what we wish to see is to see the department act quickly on these cases, of course within the parameters of the law, and ensure that people who are embezzling funds or people who are stealing funds, they are removed from the premises of the school. In fact, they are removed completely from education, because those are people who are not there to serve. They are there to actually benefit for their own gain, for their own good, rather than for the gain of our society. I mean, as much as Elijah has pointed out to some of the problems that they experience and the complaints that they receive, we have also received a lot of complaints where people say they don't get feedback as quickly as they wish they could from the department, and we would like to see that improvement on the department's side. And we understand that they do a lot of good work, but a lot more still needs to be done. And organizations like ours are there to support wherever we can.
Elijah, final word today belongs to you. Tell us about your response to that, and then what is the plan going forward? Are we going to work a lot closer with all the stakeholders? What's the plan?
Yeah, we really appreciate the work that they do. It's just that sometimes things will not happen at the same pace as they hope for, because there's lots of internal processes that must still be undertaken for certain action to be taken against certain people. But one of the things we're doing at the moment is to review the South African Schools Act with a special focus on the management of school governing bodies, because that's where we believe the most challenges are emanating from. So we think that some of the areas where there's duplicity or where there's a lack of understanding of who's really responsible, those things will be clarified, and we think that once that process is completed, there will be clarity in terms of who's supposed to be accountable to what. So we believe that as part of that process, the anti-corruption measures will also be made clear for everyone to know what their responsibilities are. But we really appreciate the work that's being done, and where there's clear evidence, I mean, action will be taken. Yeah. But where there's further investigation, then we'll have to do that from our side as well, as much as the NGO would have done their work.
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. It's one of those things that really is a legitimate threat to the schooling and education system in South Africa, and it's good to see that there is some headway being made and that you guys can work together. Thank you for joining us. That's Corruption Watch's Deputy Director Bongi Mlangeni this morning, and then the spokesperson for the Department of Basic Education, Elijah Mhlanga. Thank you for joining us this morning. Time now to look at the top story, the one that's causing all the headlines at the moment. The Democratic Alliance's planned march to the ANC's headquarters has been diverted to Beyers Naudé Square here in Johannesburg today. The party originally planned a march on Luthuli House, but this plan was stopped by the city's Metro Police.
Instead of marching to Luthuli House, the party will now march to Beyers Naudé Square, a block away from Luthuli House.
The protest march will proceed down Miriam Makeba Street. They will turn right into Marshall Street. They will go up to Harrison Street, where they will turn left. Then they will proceed up left into Harrison Street, right to the Beyers Naudé Square.
The DA says the march will be peaceful.
We want the march to be peaceful. We have a message that we believe we need to deliver. We're not wanting to storm into Luthuli House as others have reported. Ours is to simply arrive at Luthuli House to deliver this message about saying, let's talk about real jobs, not job opportunities.
The ANC says the march is ill-informed, risky and a gimmick. It says this can only heighten tensions ahead of the elections.
We've been reliably informed that the DA has hired security company to come with them. They have hired batons, shields, helmets, and even reserved the emergency services in one of the hospitals in Johannesburg, which means that they are not just marching here, but they are anticipating conflict and violence and physical confrontation on the streets.
The march will be led by, among others, DA leader Helen Zille, Lindiwe Mazibuko, and Musi Maimani. Lehana Troteti, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, let's take a quick look at what you are saying about this on social media. Lots have been at Twitter. At SABC Newsroom is where we live, of course. There you see some pictures coming in on our social feed. That's at Sitole Express. Some roads already closed here in the CBD ahead of the DA's march. You can see the barbed wire all around Luthuli House, one would think. And there are another picture. ANC supporters have gathered outside Luthuli House. They say they are waiting for the DA march. Of course, tensions always run high when this kind of antagonism happens between political parties. Stephen says, I'm nervous about the DA march today. Be safe, people, he says. Tinyeko Maluleke, a professor who we hope to speak to afterwards. DA march, talk about booked hospital beds, people prepared to die defending organizations, and protective headgear ahead of a march. Not helpful. I think that is a sentiment that quite a few people agree with. Lefa says, today we have this DA march for jobs into the CBD. Hope we don't get madness. People must behave on all fronts. That is very much the thinking all around the country. Abungile says, so I've made a conscious decision to miss lectures tomorrow so I can watch live the showdown at Luthuli House. I think a lot of people are thinking like that. Let's hope the main highlights today come from the cricket in Centurion, where South Africa are playing against the Australians. We don't want to see a bloodbath in the city, and it seems as if this will not be the case. At SABC Newsroom, that's where we live. sabcnews.co.za/news. That is where you can get all the top stories from all around the world all the time. After a short break, we'll take a look and we'll talk to some people about the DA's planned march on the ANC's headquarters here in Gauteng. You are watching Newsroom on SABC News.
Sometimes a lot of people, in fact, do not have access, firstly, to palliative care. Secondly, even if they do,
So what? Do we just kill them if they don't have access to palliative care?
I think she's actually crucifying my question, with all due respect.
If you actually actively assist somebody to die, then you are convicted of murder.
Who should take the burden of terminating a life?
It's very problematic for doctors to play God.
That's Rights and Recourse, Sundays 2 p.m. on SABC News.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. We were going to go to the city to speak to Professor Tinyiko Maluleke, but we can't seem to get hold of him to talk about the DA's planned march on the ANC headquarters at Luthuli House in the Johannesburg Central Business District. So we're going to go to the northwest first and hope to get him on the line, where the Portfolio Committee on Roads and Public Works says villages of Saudi and Dipudi in the Kagisano Molopo municipality must be declared disaster-stricken. This comes after week-long rains flooded 26 villages more than 300 kilometers from the provincial capital, Mahikeng. The floods have claimed the lives of 6 people and displaced more than 700 families. Some community members have been cut off because of flooded gravel roads. Now, Kabelo Molope accompanied the Portfolio Committee during their oversight visit to inspect the progress of road construction and damage caused by floods. Good morning, Kabelo. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Eben.
Kabelo, just tell us about the seriousness of this situation in the northern parts there of your province.
As you've clearly outlined in your intro, there are several places that have actually turned into disaster. Remember, recently the Northwest was actually declared a drought disaster area. And at the moment, for a week-long rains have actually caused disaster in that area. We've seen several houses being flooded. We've seen several houses that were collapsed. Bridges have actually also collapsed. We've seen several people drowning. There are actually six deaths that were reported. 5 of them were actually drowning. One of them was actually struck by lightning. So the situation is actually dire. The Portfolio Committee yesterday visited some of these villages. There are over 26 villages that were actually affected by these floods. In some of the areas, we're speaking about areas such as Pomfret, such as Tosca and Bray, which were actually hard hit by these floods. In areas like Bonabona, school kids could not go to school. We were there since last week Thursday, where even over the weekend when IEC was actually trying to register for people to vote at the forthcoming general elections, in some areas voting stations were not opened. We understand that on Saturday, for example, 27 of them were not opened, and then on Sunday, for at least the 23 were actually opened after assistance by the emergency and rescue services to deliver some of the materials at these IEC stations, but 4 of them were not opened, meaning that some people never got the opportunity to actually register over the weekend.
Tell us about the people that are still cut off from the outside world. How are they coping, and what are the plans to help them?
Indeed, there are areas such as Kang where still, as we left the area yesterday, still learners could not go to school because of the streams that have actually formed along the main roads. Many places are still inaccessible. We saw, at least by yesterday late, the municipality trying to organize some of the mattresses, the food parcels, and some of the tents. They were actually trying to distribute them at areas which are at least accessible for now. And then they're trying to actually make plans for those that could not be reached, which is it's actually difficult, as you can see on the footage that you're just showing. Some of the areas are still inaccessible, and it is difficult to go to those areas. According to the latest stats that we got from the mayor of the area of Kagisano Molopo, is that the report that they got by late yesterday was that 186 houses were actually flooded. Some 86 houses have actually collapsed, and 26 bridges have actually collapsed, meaning it is difficult for them to enter certain areas. But through the assistance of the provincial government and the local emergency and rescue services, they were actually able to travel to some of these areas to give them at least your food parcels, your mattresses, your blankets, and the tents.
Kabelo, tell us about the mood there amongst the people in the province. It must be difficult to get your head around being drought-stricken the one week and then flooding the next week. What are the locals saying?
Yeah, as somebody clearly said, it's like going from a pan into the fire. Yeah. It is highly difficult. We spoke to residents who said, they haven't been having any food for quite some time. Some of them are saying, look, it's sad for them that they never got the opportunity to actually register over the weekend. It is still a dire situation. Teachers in certain schools unable to cross over to other areas. Some of the houses are still flooded. Their furniture is actually damaged. Food that they just recently bought, and remember, some of this people are actually below the poverty line. So for them, it is highly difficult. All their stuff is gone. It is going to take quite some time for them to actually rebuild or get into normal life.
And what about the farming in that area? We know the Northwest is very much one of the bread baskets. People depend on farming. How has it affected farming there?
As I've said, we have been in the area since last week Thursday, but for us it was actually difficult for us to actually travel to other areas, including your farming areas. We were just able to travel to areas where we got assistance from the guys from the emergency services with their big 4x4s. In some areas we haven't been able to go to those areas. We are still watching that. Remember, even today the council is actually holding a meeting where they're going to take a resolution to actually declare their area a disaster area, and they will need relief funds from the provincial government to actually assist them in terms of also getting to other areas which have been inaccessible since last week Thursday.
Kabelo, thank you for joining us and giving us an update. Let's hope the situation gets better very fast there in your province. That's Kabelo Molope, who travelled with the Portfolio Committee after most of the northern parts of that province experienced extreme flooding over the last week or so. For the past 3 days, delegates from over 30 countries have been meeting in India at the first ever International Children's Palliative Care Conference, chaired by Bloemfontein nurse Joan Marston. The conference is aimed at improving the care given to children with life-shortening illnesses around the world. Despite only reaching 5% of children needing care in this country, South Africa is regarded as a success story and is taking a leading role in this field. Richard Newton has been at the conference and, filed this report from Mumbai. Richard, how successful was this inaugural conference?
Good morning, Eben, and welcome to Mumbai, a city with over 20 million residents. It gives new meaning to the word crowded, I can assure you of that. But it's also a city that's filled with the rich colors, rich fabrics of all the stalls you can see, and of course the scents and the smells of the spices and the wonderful food that's been prepared here. But it is also a city with abject poverty and of course a lot of despair, and it's here that this conference, to try and find ways to improve the inadequate services of children with life-shortening diseases, get around the world. And it's been a 3-day conference. They've been very busy, a lot of networking, and of course coming up with ways to put into action the plans to improve the lives of these children who are suffering. It's estimated 20 million around the world don't get the care they need. Here in India itself, the host country of this conference, there isn't a single palliative care program in place. That will change hopefully after this Congress, and there have been various announcements made about that. But for the past few days we've seen doctors, nurses, social workers, caregivers all talking about what they can do, sharing experiences, sharing best practices, and talking about sharing resources. And Eben, it's expected that going ahead this will be a big improvement in the way the world looks at caring for children with life-shortening and life-threatening illnesses. Back to you in the studio, Eben.
That's Richard Newton with a groundbreaking update from Mumbai on the International Palliative Care Conference taking place in that country. Meanwhile, of course, tomorrow is a big day. The National Ceremonial Guard has held its first dress rehearsal ahead of the State of the Nation address here in this country. The speech by President Jacob Zuma takes place on a Thursday evening. Cape Townians lined the streets next to Parliament to witness this unique dress rehearsal.
Every year, about this time, the streets around Parliament are cordoned off to allow the National Ceremonial Guard to go through its paces ahead of the State of the Nation address. This year was no different. The ceremony is rooted in military tradition, a tradition many of the colonels here just wouldn't share with our cameras. At least they said not until Thursday. Meanwhile, for curious onlookers, the precision of the march, the music, the uniforms, all but took their breaths away.
The preparation for that's basically the only thing why we're here, because this is something you don't actually see every single day. That is why we're here.
I found the marching fun and the bands fun.
I never felt more safe in my life.
The Guard will have its final full dress rehearsal on Wednesday night, where they hope to iron out any problems spotted in last night's rehearsal. Lukhanyo Khalada, SABC News, Parliament.
Yeah, the State of the Nation address, of course, by President Jacob Zuma. Well, that will be tomorrow night live at 7 on this very channel. We'll start build up about an hour or so before then. So if you want to watch the State of the Nation address, this is the channel to watch it on. We'll be live pretty much most of the day and afternoon in the build up to the address by the President. But let's take a look at what you are thinking about and talking about on social media. Sergio, the Imperial, he calls himself. COSATU threatens to expel NUMSA. NUMSA gives COSATU the middle finger and dares the union to expel them. Sister Dlamini, what's next? Terry Bell says COSATU, NUMSA and expulsion. Affiliates may be expelled from COSATU by the executive, but this has to be confirmed by a national congress. And of course, that special national congress was called off. Spelele says NUMSA being chased out of COSATU, AMCU threatened with deregistration by the Department of Labour, DA marching to the ANC. It's all a conspiracy theory, says Spelele. Dudley Williams says the following. Mr. Jim must realize NUMSA is not the only union in COSATU. He failed dismally at Marikana, Easy ANC, SACP or IFP. What a question. Coleman Kamala says, I think NUMSA and Vavi are not on the same page. He wants to keep his position as COSATU SG. NUMSA wants out of COSATU. Mduduzi Dlamini says, time out for NUMSA, new dawn for COSATU. Those are your thoughts coming in on our page at SABC Newsroom. Keep it coming. We love to interact with you. We love some of the pictures that we saw a little bit earlier. Keep those coming as well. It adds a lot to the show, and it shows people unique insight as to what's happening in the hotspots around the country. After the break, we'll take a look at neck nominations, the latest craze to hit the internet. This is Newsroom, right here on SABC News.
SABC News plays a critical role in providing unbiased and reliable news. We have a well-established reputation of uncovering, reporting and delivering news. A significant growth in popularity of our news demonstrates the demand for our news content. We continue to provide unrivaled coverage of vital events in and out of the country. Wherever the news is happening, we'll be there to bring them to you at the right time. No one has the news covered like SABC News. We lead and they follow. SABC News, Africa's news leader.
With so many bad incidents happening around us, we continue sourcing, unpacking and televising nation-building and compassionate stories. From the nation's pride, those who go all out, top achievers, hard workers, those dedicated to making this country a better place, and unusual friendships. Catch all these and more on SABC News.
The ANC is waiting for the outcome of its court application for a protective order against the DA's march in Johannesburg today. The ruling party made the application in the South Gauteng High Court yesterday. DA leader Helen Zille will lead party members in a revised march to Beyers Naudé Square to demand real jobs. The party originally planned to march to the ANC's headquarters, Luthuli House, but this plan was stopped by the city's Metro Police. The march is expected to severely affect traffic in the central business district. 77 people have died when a military transport plane crashed in a mountainous area in eastern Algeria. It was carrying members of the armed forces and their relatives. It's reported that only one person survived. Officials say poor weather conditions and strong winds may have played a role in the crash. Algeria has announced an official 3-day period of mourning in that country. And the South African cricket team wants to show the cricket world exactly why the Proteas are the #1 team in Test cricket. The Proteas take on Australia in the first Test in Centurion in less than an hour's time. After all the hype and a massive build-up, South African captain Graham Smith says his team can't wait to get onto the field and let their skills do the talking. Now, the ANC has gone to the Southern Gauteng High Court in a desperate attempt to prevent its members and assets from harm during the DA's planned jobs march in the Johannesburg Central Business District this morning. The ANC has dismissed as unfounded suggestions that it wants to prevent the DA from marching. DA leader Helen Zille will lead party members in a revised march to Beyers Naudé Square now to demand what they say real jobs. The last time the Inkatha Freedom Party supporters marched on the then ANC headquarters, Shell House, more than 2 decades ago, the result was a bloody clash between ANC security and the marchers. Now, Yelisa Njumela is in the CBD and joins us on the line. Good morning, Yelisa.
Good morning, Eben.
Yelisa, quickly, just give us an update. What's happening in the city?
Well, a number of DA supporters were standing at Westgate side, close to Beyers Naudé. They've already gathered, even in numbers. You can see buses trickling in. Very orderly so far. They're just singing. We're expecting many, many more. And my colleague who is at Luthuli House tells us that there are a lot of ANC members and ANC Youth League members, of course, YCL, which is the Young Communist League, and the ANC Youth League released a statement in the this morning say they will have a human chain to protect the ANC headquarters because, of course, they've been criticizing the Democratic Alliance for this initiative that they've taken. And the major criticism really is that if the DA has challenges or problems with how the ANC government rules or rather look at the job issues, that perhaps should be going to the government house, which is would be the union buildings, and not necessarily at the ANC headquarters, because they might be a ruling party, but they are not government.
Now, a lot of South Africans today are questioning the wisdom of this move. We've got historical context where this kind of thing has gone horribly wrong in the past, marching on your opponent's offices. It is your constitutional right to do so, yes, we understand. But ahead of a highly contested election, surely this kind of antagonistic approach to electioneering can only end in tears.
Well, in fact, if you cast your mind back just about 2 years ago, even at the COSATU House when the Democratic Alliance marched to the COSATU headquarters, it ended up bloody. And a lot of people were saying it was really unnecessary. They could have engaged in different ways with COSATU. And it was unnecessary in a sense that COSATU is a union. It might be part of the Tripartite Alliance, but they are a federation of the workers. So that provocation is really totally unnecessary. But the DA, of course, would proceed to say, well, it's our right. We can march. The ANC is the ruling party. Their manifesto is full of lies, as they put it, because President Jacob Zuma, as the leader of the ANC, had in the past promised 5 million jobs, and those jobs have not been delivered. The ANC has countered that and quoted that as whereby they're saying, in fact, 1 million more jobs have been created. And in this country, since the dispensation of freedom, 15 million jobs have been created, which is something that has never happened before at all. But a lot of people are concerned. Last night, we also received a statement from the ANC where they were accusing the DA of having employed a security company because it would seem like they're already anticipating some confrontation. They even ordered some helmets and have emergency services on the side. When I spoke to the DA officials, they told me that, of course, the ANC has been threatening. Of course, we have to be safe. So both sides, even, are expecting some sort of confrontation. But security personnel is here in numbers. So one would hope that no blood would be spilled today.
Well, Yolisa, thank you for that update. I'm sure you'll keep everybody updated throughout the rest of the day as to what's happening in the CBD. A lot of people are very worried that things could go horribly wrong. That's our reporter, Yolisa Njamela, with an update. Of course, the DA's planned march is going ahead, but it's not going to Luthuli House anymore. The Metro Police has diverted the march now to Beyers Nadir Square in the Central Business District store. Finally, Facebook and other social media sites are flooded with a new online craze called neck nominations. People are posting videos of them downing a drink and then nominating their friends to do the same. Now, our producer, Anton Meyer, who's a social media junkie and who's sitting here with us, joins us to talk about neck nominations, where it started and the like. Good morning, Anton. Thanks for joining us.
It's a pleasure to be on the show again.
Anton, neck nominations. It's a little bit silly, it seems, but it's sort of got the internet by the horns at the moment. Tell us a little bit about the history, where it starts.
It actually started last year, early last year, January, in the United Kingdom. And people started posting videos of them downing a beer and then nominating their friends doing the same. It really got big in Australia. And that's where the name also comes from, neck nomination. You neck a beer. That's slang for downing a beer. And people in Australia started doing it there. It got completely out of hand, and we have it now in South Africa as well.
Can we have a look at one of these neck nomination videos? I'm not sure if people are aware of it. There we go.
There's a guy who's drinking a beer on his bike.
He's downing a beer on his bike. Now, Anton, this has gotten out of hand a little bit because it's a little bit dangerous on the fact that you can do it on a motorbike. But some guys are downing hard liquor, litres of it at a time, and we've had some people die. Is that right?
There's four reports of people already dying from this online craze. But it's also attention-seeking People are doing crazy stuff just to get views on their YouTube videos. I saw a guy who's drinking a beer out of a toilet. There's a guy riding a bicycle downhill, down a mountain, and he's downing a beer on his bicycle.
Is this taking self-obsession to the absolute extreme as it can be? I wanted to look at the ones where the guys are downing hard liquor. And what's the point of it, really?
I think the point of downing the hard liquor is that you're looking for attention. You're looking for more views on your video. People must recognize you, and you're a man if you can drink a half or a liter of vodka. Luckily in South Africa, it got to our shores as well from Australia. But luckily in South Africa, we have a guy called Brent Lindicke. He saw this whole nomination thing, and he decided, okay, let's change it. Let's do something good. And he started a random act of kindness. He bought a sandwich and I think a chocolate and a Coke for a guy. Here's the video of him. He's driving down the street. He's going to give it to a beggar now.
Okay. So this is the South African take on the neck nomination. Beautiful, isn't it? We're not drinking liters of vodka, Herman. We're drinking, we're giving out sandwiches to the needy. That's what I would like. So this thing has now spiraled from what looked like an extreme negative in the beginning to becoming more of a positive scenario.
It became a positive scenario, yes. And we have companies as well, big companies, Nando's, Pick n Pay, F&B. They're all making their own neck nominations, and they are nominating other companies to also do something good. I know I think there's a milk company who is donating milk once a month to orphanage. Nando's is helping out daycare center for disabled children in Alexandra.
I know we're doing the positive spin on it, but I want to show people what the flip side of it is. Lucia, if you can help us, if you can play the guy drinking the vodka, the hard liquor, that's what we want to see, because it's so off the charts. It's something that you should, kids, if you're watching and you should be in school, you should never do this.
No, it's allowed.
You shouldn't be doing this. This is complete. Look at, here we have a guy downing a liter of vodka or a bottle of vodka, and we've had deaths.
It's absolutely crazy. In South Africa, we don't have this.
Yeah?
I haven't seen a video of people drinking 1.5 liters of vodka, but you get your videos where they down a beer. Now, that's innocent and fun, and a beer is not as bad as drinking 1.5 liters of vodka. I'm not endorsing it, but it's not as bad.
You shouldn't be endorsing it, Anton. That is crazy. We should not be even thinking about that. No. That's not gonna get it done. And then when you're completely broken, but there's lots of positivity around it also, with the Nando's and these people coming in and turning it into a positive. Have you neck nominated anybody?
No, and I haven't been neck nominated.
Okay, I want to neck nominate some of my mates today. I'm going to climb Kilimanjaro in August. And one of my mates, Rael Martin, Lyndon Martin, his brother, and Frans Rosleer, I want you to come and walk up Kilimanjaro with me, second week in August, for charity. And you better do it. You've been nominated on TV. Okay. That's where we... Anton, are you sure you don't want to join us going up Kilimanjaro?
I'll do it.
Okay, there we go.
I'll do it, yeah.
We've got Anton who's just committed himself also. It's for charities, for good cause, and we're going to try and get it done. Give us your thoughts, what you're thinking. Let's actually look what you're talking about on social media and tell us what you think about neck nominations, because that's just crazy, man. The day has finally arrived where we can see the Proteas in whites. Yes, it is that day. While we are showing the Aussies why we are number one. That's from Anthony Stokes. Ria Daniel says the Aussies have been in top form lately, while the number one test team has been dormant for a while. Let's see how the Proteas take this. Proteas versus Aussies. Yes, please. Should be a cracker. Sir AJ Tini. Yes, we agree with you. Absolute cracker today. And Sandy says, best of luck, beat the Aussies to all of her heroes. Good on you, my dear. Simpiwe says the Aussies have the toughest squad. I doubt the Proteas are going to stand the heat of the Aussies. Very, very patriotic of you there, Simpiwe. Of course, keep it coming. We love your contributions. At SABC Newsroom is where we live on Twitter. And, of course, SABC News, sabc.co.za/news. That's the wrong super. John, you did it again. Okay, time for us now to move on This is where we say goodbye. However, Shirley Temple, Hollywood starlet and screen legend, passed away yesterday at the age of 85. Newsroom closes today with a look at one of her debut movies at the age of 6 in 1934. This show was broadcast live every weekday morning between 9 and 10 a.m. Highlights are repeated at 2 o'clock in the afternoon with a rebroadcast at 5 a.m. the following morning. We also streaming live on YouTube between 9 and 10 a.m. every day, with the entire show available all day on our YouTube channel. You're watching SABC News. This is Newsroom, where we love it in the morning.
Good evening.